Hello and welcome back to the Nest and Inside the Iggles live show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today on this Monday, October 30th. We are here to talk about your Philadelphia Eagles, the team that is sitting at the top of the NFC East, the team that is sitting at the top of the NFC, and the team that is sitting at the top of the NFL with the best record in the league of 7-1. After they come off honestly, not quite sure how to feel about it, but after they come off of a 38-31 victory, sweeping the Washington Commanders in the 2023 season, it's what we all wanted. It didn't exactly look, neither game really looked the way that we wanted it to look, but that's where we're at, guys. It's a good day. And here's something I didn't think I was going to say in 2023. But if A.J. Brown wanted to sit down and talk about how the earth is flat and wanted to convince me, I'd listen. I'd listen to him. You'd be foolish not to listen to him. A man with that kind of talent, if he wanted to just chat with me about how the earth is flat, I'm not going to say no. I'm not just going to be like, no, this is a crazy man talking. This is a guy who's not from this planet. He's seen other planets. He's seen this planet from outside of the atmosphere. It might be flat. He breaks the record that was held by Calvin Johnson, and I believe it was Pat Skill Stud, something like that. Calvin Johnson's obviously the more recent one, the one that's very impressive, but he breaks the record. He has 6 consecutive games with 125 plus receiving yards. Guys, it is a good day. It is a good day. I'm going to bring in my co-hosts, ladies and gentlemen. It's Brandon Pockris and Jeffrey Knox. How are you guys doing today? And are you ready and willing to accept that we might be living on a flat thing and not a globe floating through the universe?
I'm down. I just want to know when we get to talk trash about Dallas Cowboy fans.
Oh, that's coming.
Oh yeah, it's Cowboys week. Yeah, I mean, pretty fun day if you're an Eagles fan. They, no matter what seems to happen with their struggles, with whether it's the offense or defense or whatever it is, they just seem to keep winning. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Because if there's anything that I've learned from this Eagles season up to this point, is that whatever unit is slacking that day, the other unit is going to pick them up and vice versa. And let's face it, in an NFL this year that probably has as much parity as I can remember, where the elite teams keep slipping and stumbling, the consistency that the Eagles have shown, it's really not there for the majority of teams. And it's not consistency without adversity. It's having that consistency while dealing with a ton of adversity in the process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, easily the Eagles are the most consistent team in the NFL. Maybe you don't know. Maybe it's not necessarily like you said, not necessarily the position groups are being incredibly consistent, or one side of the ball is being more consistent than the other side of the ball. But it's a team sport, and there's 22 guys, however many people. 50. It's a 53-man roster anyway. Let's say that, and you're right. They keep winning, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Let's talk about this since Adrian brought it up real quick, and I actually do have some notes on it. Does James Bradberry's play concern you?
No, not at all.
Not at all for you?
No.
Okay.
James Bradberry is an all-pro corner. I believe in James Bradberry. They got, and no disrespect to anything Adrian's saying and things of that nature, but you guys know how I feel about what I would call like overreactions and things of that nature. Like, Bradberry got beat by Tyreek Hill. He got beat by Terry McLaurin. I'm not going to sit here and punish him because he did that. Like, sometimes we forget, as dominant as this team looks on paper from time to time, that the other teams have NFL players too, even the ones that don't play very well. But James Bradberry, I think, will be fine moving forward in a game like the NFL. Jerry Rice beat Deion Sanders sometimes. Deion Sanders beat Jerry Rice sometimes. Darryl Green got taken advantage of by some guys and things of that nature. But no, I'm not concerned about James Bradberry at all. All-pro safety. Should have been a Pro Bowler last year as well. But it's just the nature of the game. You get guys' best shots. Sometimes you win a play. Sometimes you lose a play. But, I mean, who else you going to put out there? Josh Jobe?
See, I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point with the Josh Jobe thing. But I am on the opposite side. I am actually very concerned with James Bradberry. So it's 17 games last year. James Bradberry got targeted 86 times, and he allowed 39 completions. That's a 45.3 completion percentage against him. This year alone, in 7 games. So I don't believe, did he miss a game this year?
Yeah, he had a concussion.
Yes, he did. So in 7 games this year, he's been targeted 36 times. He's allowing 21 completions, which is 58.3. And the passer rating that he's allowing is 113, which is a career high for him, like by a lot.
Right.
So I don't have any worries about Slay. I think Slay is older, but he's holding up very well. Maybe not very well over there. He's holding up over there. And he's making, like we saw last week, didn't happen this week, but he's making the big play. I think that the age thing might have bitten James Bradberry a little bit, and I think obviously that can go down, but we're coming up onto kind of a gauntlet of games here, and I'm really, really, really hoping that James Bradberry's the production against James Bradberry, hopefully that kind of like comes down and kind of regresses back to the mean, because he's getting burnt, man. He's getting burnt.
So looking at some Pro Football Focus stuff, and obviously you don't want to just use this as the end-all, be-all, but they had Darius Slay getting targeted 8 times. So he had was in coverage against Dotson for 3 targets, Gibson for 2, Samuel for 1, McLaurin for 1, and Pringle for 1. On 8 total targets, led up 6 receptions for 38 yards. Not bad whatsoever. In fact, I'd say it's, like pretty good versus Bradberry. He had led up 4 receptions, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had an interception. So it's
near an interception. He had to break up on the 4th down play, I think.
Yeah, it should have been a pick. Should have been a pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so PFF then has that completely wrong, because it has him listed as having an interception. So, but regardless of that, I think this upcoming stretch, and it starts this week, you're going to get a much better idea of where this Eagles secondary is truly going to fall, in the sense of Dallas, right? Where Dallas puts CeeDee Lamb is going to be very interesting, in the sense of how the Eagles are going to adjust to that, because they lost Avonte Maddox at the beginning of the year, and this would have been a very important game for him because of the way Dallas moves Lamb from the outside to the slot and vice versa. They also have Brandon Cooks, who maybe is not prime, quote unquote, Brandon Cooks, but he's still very good. He's still a guy that can get stuff done. I'm very interested to see how Bradberry does against them, how he fares against San Francisco, how he does against the likes of Buffalo, because how he does against those types of teams is going to tell you whether or not the Eagles need to make adjustments down the line as they head towards the playoffs, and maybe start getting some of their younger cornerbacks ready to have this bigger role in the playoffs.
Yep.
Or if you see Bradberry start to turn some things around, maybe you feel comfortable where, okay, we got Slay, we got Bradberry, they're going to shut things down for the most part. It's very intriguing, because if you were to say there's one legitimate weakness of the Eagles this season, it's been their secondary.
Oh, yeah.
And if they can even bring that production up a little bit, and that's talking guys like Bradberry, this team's going to have even more success, which is kind of crazy to even think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think this might be a good way for us to kind of pivot into the passing defense as a whole. Because you're talking about CeeDee Lamb next week, and obviously he lines up in the slot a lot. That was one thing that was kind of a thing, at least, that I was a little bit curious about going into this game, is what the Eagles were going to do at slot. And what it seemed like a lot of Sidney Brown for like the first like obvious passing. Maybe.
That's who you don't want to cover, Sidney Brown. Like, I know he wants to run down and hit guys and things.
Yes.
And he's actually who took Terry McLaurin out of the game. That violent shot he put on Terry McLaurin. If you notice, all those incompletions came after that.
Yeah.
So Sidney's got a little
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but he's got a little Brian Dawkins, little Malcolm Jenkins in him. He just wants to come down, wreck shop, things of that nature. He's gonna have to get better in coverage.
Yeah,
but again, like, and kind of to go back to your Bradbury point, like how much of this is actually Bradbury playing outside of like the comfort zone of what he's used to doing? Like he's more a bump and run, physical, rough guys up type of guy. Now we got him like Tyreek Hill for respect of Tyreek Hill's speed, which I totally understand. Got him playing like 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. Now I understand there's another side to that. Like you can't play 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and get beat deep.
Right.
Especially if you're all pro. But at the same time, I just wonder if some of this is him just trying to get used to some of what is being done. But then again, I guess the Jonathan Gannon scheme and the Sean Desai scheme have some similarities to them, them both being like disciples of Vic Fangio. But Kevin Byard helps a lot.
Now I was gonna ask how much so Reed Blankenship and we were talking about this in the Slack kind of during the game. Reed Blankenship, I'm not gonna say strays, they were calculated drone strikes directly at Reed Blankenship. But he for the vast majority of this game, and I believe I saw like an interview with him in the locker room afterwards, like he even recognized it, like he played bad for most of the game. How much do you put on he had a bad game, because he doesn't normally have like bad games, but everybody does? Or was it like a thing with him getting used to playing next to Kevin Byard? Because like in training camp and everything, he got used to playing next to Terrell Edmonds and Zach Evans. Like he got used to playing next to these other guys. Kevin Byard comes in, short week of preparation for him, comes in, and Kevin Byard plays the entirety of the game, plays every single snap on defense. So is that Reed Blankenship trying to get comfortable? Did he just have a bad day? Like, do we put any? Is it a mix of both? What are we thinking about that?
I think you can't really make that determination until you see, I feel like, the next week and maybe the next 2 weeks, in the sense of, take the offensive line as an example, right? With all the different communication things and how they have to rotate on stunts, having a set unit is so important, because the minute one guy flips, now you're having to deal with a guy that may not understand things the same way, a guy that may not react the same to how the starter would react to something. The same goes for the secondary, because the Eagles coverage scheme isn't just line up and man coverage and just follow your guy. No, there's zone stuff, and how are the guys rotating zones? And this could extend even beyond Blankenship to guys like Bradbury.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of go with that.
Where now you have Byard. Is Bradbury now worried, like, oh, if this guy doesn't do this, now I have to do this, and that's creating issues in zone type coverages or half man, half zone? And I'm very intrigued to see how it develops, because this could be a case where once Byard's comfortable and once the whole secondary is comfortable with each other, now you start to see the production increase for Bradbury. Now you start to see Slay maybe get more comfortable with jumping routes and doing stuff like that. Maybe you see Blankenship playing back to the level that he was earlier.
Yeah.
It's never, I feel like, especially in secondary stuff, a one-to-one thing where there can be, and usually is, a trickle-down effect when you put a new guy in, no matter how good he is. There is an adjustment period. So I guess to your point, I'm not going to panic off one game. It could just be a mix of, hey, Byard's here, got to understand how the whole secondary works now, and the fact that Washington just might have the Eagles' number in terms of the passing attack, because there hasn't really been a team in the NFL that the Eagles have played besides Minnesota, and that was a lot of catch-up, where they've just straight up beat the Eagles throwing the ball. It's very interesting to see how Washington's been able to do that, and not many teams have. I think a big part of that is having a guy like McLaurin, and the Vikings having a guy like Jefferson. So I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that communication kind of that ripple, like is if Bradbury's getting beat deep, which like Jeff said, like he's an all-pro. Like we don't think that this is a kind of thing that should happen, and it didn't last year for the most part. I mean, it's kind of been happening this year, but like there's also been, this is the 8th game. It's been 8 games in the season. Every single game, there's been a different equation or different, what's a different lineup,
calculus equation.
Yeah, whatever. A different group of defensive backs for every starting defensive backs for every single game. So maybe once there gets to be some repetition and familiarity, that'll be, yeah.
It's tough, and you were seeing a lot of things happen like that to that point, kind of what Brandon was saying too as well. I just piggyback off that by saying we're talking about comfort and familiarity and things of that nature. Like you saw plays where like Sidney Brown was looking for help from a safety, and he's a safety. You got like situations where just take the Reed Blankenship angle for a second here. Like we're still talking about a guy who's only played 16 NFL games in the regular season and has only started 10 of them. So we didn't even talk about like a full season's worth of start shit and things of that nature. You have Sean Desai, who to some extent is playing a little bit of juggling act and playing a little bit of musical chairs with the roster, but he's also not as astute as his job yet, though he probably will be. He's not as astute as his job as Eric Bieniemy is at his. So Eric Bieniemy did a really good job of putting his guys in position to be successful, and the Eagles were trying to play catch up. And this month also ended in the same manner that it began. You got a Washington Commanders team who does have the Eagles numbers to some extent, who always plays this team tough if they're not getting the upset. And they always seem to get the upset in Philadelphia for some reason, as one of you guys mentioned last week. But I think the craziest thing about all of that is starting in October, on the beginning of October, with a game versus this team that almost beat them at the beginning of October. There's just a few slight adjustments here and there that they could have made. And then in both games, if one or two plays goes in the opposite direction, the Eagles are probably talking about 2 losses of this team as opposed to 2 wins.
Yeah, no, I mean that's for sure. Yeah, and that Bieniemy Desai kind of battle there, you could definitely tell which one of these guys has had a lot of experience adjusting for a team that he's already seen, whereas Sean Desai had that 1 year with the Bears in 2021, and it's like, well, that was kind of a toast season for them already. So, and he was kind of working with. I'm not even sure what kind of insult I want to use with how bad that Bears defense was, but not good. Not good is a good way to say it. But yeah, there's something to that. Let's see. Where do we? Oh yeah, well, talking about Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks, because they were both playing that slot corner. Bang up job at the beginning of the game. Phenomenal job at the beginning of the game. First drive, Sidney Brown gets 2 tackles for a loss. Like you're saying, yeah, man, he had those 2 plays, and then that Mondo hit on Terry McLaurin that
pretty much took Terry out the game.
Oh my God, that shook him. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I for a guy who has had very limited playing time, very limited snaps, I'm very much looking forward to him. And I, aside from Eli Ricks's kind of really dumb, not kind of really dumb, just really dumb DPI. Was that on the first drive as well? I think it might have been.
Extended the drive.
Yep, that extended the drive. Aside from that, again, I don't. He's kind of doing, like, for a guy that you see in the preseason, be like, hey, Eli Ricks, not bad, Eli Ricks. We're in the regular season, and it's like, yeah, Eli Ricks is not bad. So it's nice to be able to see that when it comes to actual live fire that he's holding up. So it's. I mean, I'm kind of fine with that, having the young guys in the secondary, especially when the 2 starting outside corners are older fellas. I think that's very promising for us. Yeah. But as far as that Commanders passing attack went, my God, man, like you were saying, they have the Eagles number with that. For the most part of the game, Sam Howell was getting the ball out in 1.93 seconds, which is absolutely nuts. And it wasn't just like dink and dunk passes either. Like, yeah. I think it was like over 5, maybe even over 6 average depth of target. Like he was moving that, but like he played really well.
Bieniemy did with Sam Howell. We keep asking Brian Johnson to do with Jalen Hurts. Like, find some ways to get this guy comfortable. Once they got Sam Howell comfortable, he started carving his team up and things of that nature. And it was just as simple as just like a slight adjustment, which as much as I praise Eric Bieniemy, I don't know why he didn't think about this later. You and I were talking about this, Jake. Like, this is something you probably should have just started thinking about before we got to like 40 sacks. Move this guy off this spot a little bit. try to get him in space, try to get him to roll out a little bit, try to reduce the chances of him getting clobbered. And it really worked well for him. I'm glad it didn't result in the Eagles' loss, but it really worked well for him.
Yeah, I think on Friday we said the only way that Sam Howell is not going to get sacked 40 times is if he gets drawn and quartered. But turns out there's another way you can do it and just have him move and get rid of the ball quick. One of those is less painful.
Right.
It's so funny how across the NFL, so many coordinators are just stubborn and don't put their quarterbacks in the best position to succeed consistently, that is. And obviously it's like, no, you can't roll out a guy every single play. You can't get a guy on the move every single play. But to the earlier point, getting him on the move early and getting a guy comfortable and playing in a rhythm is so important for any position, let alone quarterback, where Sam Howell gets on the move, he starts getting a rhythm. Now he's actually seeing the field. Now he doesn't feel like he needs to hold on to the ball, try to make a big play happen. And lo and behold, you do that. You actually throw it to your best two receivers, and Jahan Dotson, who I don't know why the Commanders haven't used him all year, but that's beside the point. And McLaurin, oh, look, you have the best passing game of his career. It's funny in the sense of, like, look at Justin Fields, right? You feel it. His best games are when he has the easy layups, he gets in a rhythm, and then he just starts rolling. And he's able to move, and he's able to get out there. I mean, even a guy like, ironically, Zach Wilson, who I'm not saying is a good quarterback by any stretch, the best things that he does are basically on the move and getting out of the pocket and all of that. It's just very funny how so many coordinators just want to stick to what they do and not let the quarterback have the easy completions and let the guy get into a groove to then have the success later in the game when you build off of that. It's very strange, and it seems like it's something more teams should do, but they just simply don't.
You're right. I mean, this is the scheme. This is what we're going to do, regardless of what we have, instead of doing what coaches are supposed to do with coach your players. Like, look at the guys you have and, play to their strengths. It's
why the great coaches mold the scheme to the players. They don't mold the players to the scheme. And I feel like a huge example of that, too, is Andy Reid. Look at how Andy Reid has evolved over the years. He didn't keep the same scheme he ran in Philadelphia for Patrick Mahomes. He molded a lot of that to the skill set of what Mahomes brought to the table. And I'm not saying Mahomes didn't learn Andy Reid's scheme and understand how to operate that. But there are elements of, hey, this guy has one of the most ridiculous arms we've ever seen and has the athleticism. Let's build a lot of the offense towards that. Mm-hmm. And that it just simply doesn't happen. It's very weird.
Good point. The Eagles are also always preparing for a Commanders team seemingly that has a different quarterback too. Like they played Sam Howell twice this week, but you remember the first game of the season last year, we were talking about Carson Wentz.
Yep.
Then they got a backup after that and stuff. So it's like, I think that's part of it too. Like, you just never know who you're preparing for, and now you got to adjust to this new guy and what his skill set is and what he's good at. But they know they're getting Jalen Hurts on the other side.
Yeah. I know we're Eagles show. Are Commanders comfortable with Sam Howell? If you're a Commanders fan, are you comfortable with Sam Howell?
I don't know how good Sam Howell is because of the abuse he's taken. It seems like he can do some nice things. I mean, he beat Dallas last year.
Mm-hmm.
The team rallies behind him. I think he's better than Carson Wentz.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just like, how good is this guy? It's like we don't really have a fair measuring stick with which to judge him, other than the fact that he's just got like some great skill players around him or something like that. You disagree, B?
No, just saw something pop up, and it kind of pertains to the Eagles because it's NFC. Apparently, the Vikings are, it's from CJ Golson, who, I don't know how valid it is. He's apparently saying that the Vikings are potentially trading for Jameis Winston.
Oh, I saw that. That guy, I know. I saw that, and it's the guy is pretty much shooting from the hip. One of those,
okay,
throw enough things out there and get a picture of Jameis Winston, and then Photoshop it so he's wearing purple.
Yeah, I
Okay.
that'd be a very interesting move. Having that type of gunslinger with Addison and Hawkinson and Jefferson coming back. I mean,
I can't believe I'm about to say this. I think Kirk Cousins is better than Jameis Winston, isn't he?
No, he is.
Oh, absolutely.
1,000% he is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's not a question. I'm just very
It's intriguing.
I'm very intrigued by that. But
Yeah.
to the point with how I think it all depends where the Commanders draft.
Yeah, that's probably fair too.
Like, I like Sam Howell, and I like what he brings to the table. Is he a perfect quarterback? No, but it's so damn hard to find a quarterback in the NFL nowadays. I mean, look at the situation the Giants were in. I never thought I'd see a game where a team had a net negative passing yards. It reminded me of, the dark ages of some of these teams where
The
it's
overhand.
like the Greg McElroys of the 09s. It just very, very dark times of quarterback play. But he has a very good arm. He's able to move. You get that decision making to speed up a little bit more. I think you have something there. But on the flip side of that, is Sam Howell better than a JJ McCarthy? Is Sam Howell better than a Michael Penix? Is he better than a Bo Nix? If you get in the Drake May and Caleb Williams range, which I don't think they are, I think they're too good for that.
Yeah.
That's not a question. But you have to weigh, is it worth investing this high asset into a team that needs a lot of assets? Or are we comfortable taking the quarterback and building off that and getting a new head coach in there? And that's the other thing. There's so many other factors going on with the Commanders where this could be a completely new coaching staff that is like, no, we want our own quarterback, and Sam Howell ends up somewhere else. So it's very, very interesting.
Talking about coaching and Riverboat Ron, my favorite play of the entire game. Yes, the AJ Brown catch was phenomenal. That was truly amazing. The
touchdown catches.
The one-handed one. That's he meant. But my favorite play of the game by far was when I can't remember who caught the ball, but then they did the review, the short review, and then they changed it to incomplete, or maybe it's but anyway. But then Ron Rivera's like, no, look at it again, and then challenged it. That was my favorite because Ron Rivera is he's an idiot. That man is so stupid and dumb and just shows everybody week in and week out how dumb he is. And then at the end of the game, they score a touchdown. He doesn't go for two. Oh my goodness. Ron Rivera is the dumbest man alive, and I hope he never gets fired. That guy,
Ron Rivera is a defensive coordinator in a head coaching position. That's what he is. He's a great defensive mind. Like, he might be the worst, to your point, he might be the worst in-game adjustment guy I think I've ever seen. Like, he has no idea. I don't think he knows some of the rules.
No, man, it sucks because they get rid of Daniel Snyder, and yes, Daniel Snyder, complete and total piece of garbage. But the NFC East was easier to win when Daniel Snyder was the owner of the Commanders. Getting rid of Ron Rivera is only going to be a detriment to us, and at the end of the day, that's all I care about is us and me.
Nick said it last week. He's out of here. No, I agree.
Nothing will ever beat for me last year when it was the press conference, and it sounded when Ron Rivera had no idea that the Commanders were eliminated from playoff contention.
So
simply by seeing that, I was, oh yeah, Rivera lost his fastball, and that's not even including all the on the field stuff that is very questionable. And honestly, right? Would it surprise you one bit if the trade deadline passes tomorrow, they don't deal with Brissett, and in a last-ditch effort to try to save his job, Rivera yanks Howell and puts Brissett in, and not only still gets fired, but stunts the growth of the team where they don't know what they have in Sam Howell?
Oh, my God.
Would not surprise me one bit.
I'd love it.
But no. He's the coach, so he's trying to win, trying to keep that job. What y'all think about this question? Commanders had a little fire in them from losing, which made the game so tight, I believe. I shouldn't need my glasses. Do you think Dallas coming off a win has better momentum than we do after our win?
I don't think Dallas is capable of getting momentum. They're every
Good point.
every single game for them is a singular thing. Like it's just that no, I don't think that they get momentum.
I'm interested in how Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott traded places. Like all of a sudden, Jerry Jones doesn't want to poke the bear, and he wants to be quiet on the microphone because we all know Jerry Jones loves the microphone. Anywhere there's a microphone, Jerry Jones is enjoying himself. But now he doesn't want to poke the bear. Now Dak Prescott is talking about wearing like honey and putting honey on his body. First of all, pause. I don't want that visual. Second of all, like, what are we talking about here? Like, this comes after, like, y'all probably don't know anything about this. So I'm hanging out with talking to a friend of mine, D. She recommends this TV show to me, and it's something that comes on BET or some Tyler Perry show and stuff like that. So it's called, like, All the Queen's Men or something like that. But it's based around this madam that has, like, this male strip club. But, like, I'm in this for 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm not watching this. How would you recommend this to me? So after that, after the horror and the shock of that, now I got to listen to Dak Prescott talk about putting honey all over his body. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, no, I refuse. Sorry, that's me. I went somewhere else.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. Dak Prescott is one of if we're talking top 5 losers, like dorky losers, not like losers like losing games losers, like losers. Dak is a top 5 loser in the NFL. The guy's a loser, and you can't hard stretch to find somebody that can bump him out of the top 3.
Nick Comment says, praying we trade Mariota to the Vikings. I would agree that I would pray that Mariota goes somewhere, but I just don't see it happening. Howie Roseman is just like, with the issues with Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is hurt this early in the season and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see them dealing Mariota. You guys maybe can disagree or whatever, but I just don't see them dealing Mariota with the expectation that there's a chance that, Hurts might miss some games and then put the ball in the hand of the 7th rounder.
I will say, seeing what has happened with other teams that have lost their quarterbacks, trading for a backup is near impossible, if not just completely impossible. I mean, listen, the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers in week 1. They still weren't able to trade for a backup that early. Whether that's on them or teams just asking for like out of the ordinary prices, like probably 2nd, 3rd round, like teams understand how bad injuries can be. And if you look around the league, the injury situation is just as bad as ever.
Yep.
So teams are just not going to offload their backups. Like a team like Washington is simply just not going to unload Brissett unless their season circles down the drain. And a lot of teams are like that. I think that brings it to a whole point where I think the trade deadline should be a few weeks later.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have a few more teams solidified in the sense of, oh, we're not doing anything. We need to trade, get more draft capital, et cetera, et cetera. And then to the Cowboys point, I think it basically comes down to they live by the motto of kill or be killed, in the sense of they are either blasting the doors off of teams or just getting completely ran out of the stadium by teams. And there's just simply nothing in the middle where you could constitute it to a normal game. It is just a blowout every single week, no matter who they're playing.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up.
One end of it or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, right now their games, they've had one normal game. It's been 40-0, 30-10. Then they lost 28-16, and it wasn't that close. Won 38-3, lost 42-10, won 20-17, then won 43-20. Yeah, no, they're the as much as you want to be like, okay, they finally had like a normal game against the Chargers. Maybe they'll start to have more normal games. Like, no, actually, that's the outlier. That one right there, that's the outlier. That's the crazy thing, is that they played a game that was competitive.
And in typical Cowboys fashion, we're back to beating our chests after beating a sub 500 team. Like, now we're back in it and we're great again. Like, I'm disgusted by this fan base. Like, nothing makes me more. It physically makes me ill to talk to Cowboys fans about football. Like, I'm so sick of it, man. Like, it's the most irritating thing I can do. Like, it's just.
Yeah, I was getting ready to.
Cowboys fans, we do that tonight, or we wait until Friday.
Devil's advocate, though, the Rams have been feisty this year, and they completely just blitzed them out of the stadium. Albeit they did lose Stafford relatively early in the game.
Twice they lost him.
But look, at the end of the day, Dallas is just, they're Dallas. They have a really good defense. and they're shifting back towards a pass-happy offense, which I'm very interested to see how that ends up, because Tony Pollard just isn't producing the way I think Dallas would like him to, and that's why I think you're getting more volume for CeeDee Lamb now, which should have been the case in the first place. They kind of fell ass backwards into that. Brandon Cooks is getting more production, Ferguson, and ironically, I think that presents the Eagles with a worse matchup in a sense, because what Dallas's offense is shifting towards is what the Eagles are worse at. But you always have to throw in the Mike McCarthy factor of, hey, our passing offense is absolutely rolling. Now we're just going to run the ball 25, 30 times.
Yeah, on that Pollard note, this has been something that I've been keeping track of because I 100% don't believe that Tony Pollard can be a workhorse running back. 2022, he had his career high in carries at 193 carries and had just over 1,000 rushing yards, 1,007 rushing yards. This year alone, so his career high is 193 carries. This year alone, he's played 7 games, 108 carries, so over half of the carries that he's of his career high, and he's only had 423 yards, which is what's that? Probably 40% of the production.
He also still might be hurt.
And he's going to break down if he isn't hurt.
That's what I'm saying, is that as far as like him carrying a workload, that man benefited more than any human being on the planet from Zeke being in the locker room.
He's not a workhorse running back. You're absolutely right about that. Like,
yeah,
and whether
I don't know if it's going to be this week. I don't know if it's going to be when we see them again. But at some point, Tony Pollard, his body is gonna crumple, baby. Is going to turn glass.
So to look at some of his rushing stats this year, he's only averaging 3.9 yards per attempt, and he in his last I guess I'd say his first 7 games, he only has 1 game over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah,
and his past 4 have been 47, 29, 30, and 53, and obviously a part of that is game script dependent.
Yep. But
Dallas is supposed to have this very good rushing attack. And I'm not saying Tony Pollard is a bad running back. He just might not be elite.
He's not good for the job that they're asking him to do.
He's the other guy. He's not the guy.
Correct.
Right. And what that is doing now, which ironically too might be the best thing for the Cowboys, is opening up that passing attack again.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it just worked for him like magic 2 games in a row.
Because Dak's a very interesting conversation when it comes to quarterback play. Because I don't think he's as good as people say he is, but I also don't think he's as bad as people say he is. In the sense of, I think he's a very good quarterback that can get you a lot of wins, but he isn't this upper level elite of the elite quarterback. And people go too far in either direction. I think him having healthy CeeDee Lamb, having Brandon Cooks as that maybe not amazing number 2, but a guy that can do enough, and having the tight end and number 3 wide receiver that can work, you have a very good offense, and you have an offense that can compete. It's just a matter of, can they stay consistent with that when they don't necessarily want to be like that, in McCarthy's own words.
Now, B, you know I trust your opinion about everything. I know I think you're a scientist when it comes to this stuff. I'm gonna put you on the spot there, man. You said it, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. I can explain why Dak Prescott isn't as good as what he said he is. I dare you to try to tell me how he's not as bad as I say he is. Give me that one.
A very smart man once said, "Dak is ass. Dak is ass."
I just think that so many of his bad plays are just magnified in the sense of he is the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. And I think so much of it is how the Dallas Cowboys are viewed. And that's not saying it's unwarranted, because the Dallas Cowboys fans tend to talk a lot.
He's a deity to them.
So we're not talking about Dallas Cowboy fans tonight.
No, but
we're waiting. My bad. Keep going, man. I'm sorry.
No, but it's interesting because I really like what he does on a game-to-game basis in the sense of running an offense, and he's able to make the throws he needs to. But you have that game every once in a while where it's just that letdown, where you think he should be doing so much better than he is, and he's just slightly late on the throw, or he's not seeing that defender that's sitting right there and throws an interception. It's those types of games where that keep him from that upper echelon, but he plays so well in the majority of those other games where he isn't completely kneecapping the Cowboys and he completely isn't just losing them games to where I can't say he's just terrible, but I'm not going to go out and say, oh, he's in that elite of the elite category.
All right, so y'all tell me if I'm right. So this is my thing. Dak is a better Baker Mayfield. He's a better Baker Mayfield. If the situation is perfect, Dak is great. If the Cowboys can generate a 7 to 14 point lead, Dak is great. Dak is great with the lead. Dak looks great on the stat sheet when the Cowboys are trailing because Dak now has to throw the ball. And he throws the ball for 300 yards, completes 60% of his passes, let's say, and he throws 4 touchdowns. But he does it in a losing cause because the Cowboys are trying to come back after squandering the lead and they're trailing from behind. Dak is great when the situation is perfect. But I just don't see Dak as a guy, and this is why I put him outside of that elite category and would never put him there. I think he's better Baker Mayfield. I feel like Dak Prescott is one of those guys that he'll always be decent, but I just don't believe that he's going to take me to a Super Bowl. That's just my thing. And that's I think Jalen Hurts can get me to a Super Bowl and win it. I don't think Kirk Cousins can do that. I've seen Kirk Cousins on the field, regardless of how much experience he has, with guys who are supposed to have less experience. And if you didn't know what we were looking at, you wouldn't be able to tell who was who. So I put Kirk, I put Dak, I put Baker in that category. It's like these guys have a name. These guys can be decent for you, but they're not going to lead me anywhere. And then you got your Jalen Hurts, your Patrick Mahomes, your Joe Burrows. You got those guys. Maybe we can put Josh Allen in there too. I know he struggled a little bit this year. And he's been a bit of a turnover machine, but those are the guys I actually believe that can get me to the biggest game in football and win it. I just don't see Dak doing that because then, you're playing in the playoffs. You're outside. The weather's changing. The situations aren't perfect. And if you're asking Dak to go out there and throw for 300 yards in a postseason game and win it for me and you're going to put the team on his back, I just don't see him doing it. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong.
I think where I differ on that is I think he's definitely better than Baker, and I agree with the slightly better than Baker Mayfield sentiment. I think he's better than Kirk Cousins in the sense of he can move, like he has that athleticism where he can extend some plays. I think where my thing with Dak lies is I think he can go win you that game, and I think he can go make those big time plays, but it's not consistent enough to where, let's say, I don't know, you have 10 games where you need a come from behind victory and you're relying on Dak Prescott to drive down the field. I'd say he's getting you that win 3 or 4 times, where in that same situation, I'm saying Jalen is doing that 7 or Mahomes is doing that 8, where he's able to do it and he has all the talent to do it, but it's not as consistently happening as those upper echelon guys, because Dak is more likely to not see that linebacker sitting there and throw that interception. He's more likely to hold on to that ball a little bit longer and take that sack. Whereas a guy like Jalen has that pocket awareness and is going to escape. Whereas a Mahomes is going to have that awareness. Whereas a Joe Burrow is going to have that awareness. It's that slight gap that becomes a bigger story when he isn't able to get that job done.
Yeah, and I don't want to take the coward's way out and say that you're both right and I'm in the middle. So let's.
Well, I don't even think that's a wrong sentiment.
No, you're right. And my thing is that it's, man, to blame it all on Dak is tough for me, because yes, he does very dumb things, and when he does dumb things, it's hilarious because he does them dumb in such a tremendous fashion that.
But he also has Mike McCarthy.
But he also has Mike McCarthy. He also had frickin' Garrett
and Schottenheimer, and
he's the Cowboys themselves are not the team that's going to be able to clutch up like that. That's where I am. Maybe, yeah. If you got Dak, all world receiver who just broke just made NFL history, yeah, Dak could probably look pretty good. But it's the Cowboys, and they're just not good. They're not a clutch team, and they're led by numbskulls. So that's where it comes to me. I understand it's not answering the question. Do I think Dak is a better what's his dick?
Baker.
Baker, yeah, I guess that's true. But to say that it's because I don't think he can win a big game, it's like I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that can't win a big game.
Well, I'll put it to you like this, right?
Like Brandon said, excuse me, Brandon, but like Brandon said earlier, he's like talking about the difficulty of playing the quarterback position. That's why we're taking 7 of them every year in the draft.
Yeah. That's why it's the most important position in all of sports. So for me to say, yeah, it's on the coaches. I mean, it is. I mean, Dak has his hand just in that pot, just reaching, just stirring it with his fist, like he's making jungle juice or something like that. Like he's the pot that stirs the soup. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me. He's garbage. Don't get me wrong. I don't like him, and I think he sucks. But I to be fair, I think most people suck. Like, I don't want to dance on a sick man's grave right now. Hey, Patrick Mahomes, beat it, nerd.
Well, I'll put it to you like this, right? Dak Prescott on the 49ers. If you take Dak Prescott and just drop him on the 49ers, I think that team's even better than what they have with Purdy.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it's like, and I think Dak Prescott on that 49ers team is taking them at minimum to the NFC Championship game.
I agree with that.
So it's like
for a lot of reasons you said, for a lot of reasons I've been saying forever, Purdy just fell into a situation where he had Schottenheimer, he had Christian McCaffrey behind him, he's got George Kittle over here, he's got what's the South Carolina guy's name?
Debo.
He's got Debo over there. Brandon Ayuk is good and stuff like that. He just kind of falls in that situation. I could throw for 175 yards with that team. Now all of a sudden you start to lose little pieces and stuff like that because we know McCaffrey's gonna get hurt. We know Debo's gonna get hurt. All of a sudden Brock Purdy can't play anymore.
Well, that's a different discussion. I don't think it's all on Purdy. I think he also was concussed and he was playing very well before he was concussed. That's a whole different conversation we can get into in a later week. But he hasn't played the same since he got concussed, and I don't know why they rushed him back in 1 week. But to the Dak point again, it's very interesting because that goes to the point you were saying, Jake, right? Dak Prescott on a team that is organization that is fully competent all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like is just, I wouldn't say all world, but he would be viewed as that. Whereas the quarterback situation, there's so much put at the feet of the quarterback that isn't necessarily the quarterback's fault. Where there's a lot of times where I've seen Dak play really well, but the Cowboys are losing those games. There's a lot of times where, like, for example, the Arizona game. That's my example of why I'm not putting him in that elite tier. And yeah, teams lose to other teams all the time in football, but you've seen so much of that happen with the Dallas Cowboys over the years where it's that detriment on Prescott. So it's a very interesting conversation. I'm very interested to see how he fares against the Eagles because I think I said this near the beginning of the show. Wouldn't surprise me if he had a really good game, and it wouldn't surprise me if he had a really bad game.
Yep.
That's the bad part about this. Like, Dak always beats the Eagles. He's like 8-3 when he plays.
Yeah, somebody
like
made a
somebody
comment.
just commented earlier, like, what was it? You and I had the
this
same
one.
project.
Yeah. Prescott will have a field day with our secondary. Buddy, Lance, I got bad news for you, man. Dak's going to do that anyway, friend.
He always does. Like, we're sitting there talking about trash about him, but he beats us. Like, we haven't beaten this team with Dak since 2019. We haven't beaten the Cowboys in Arlington since 2017.
Yeah, I'm sure the inside the Giants show is like, we don't shore up this defensive line. Boston Scott's going to eat us alive. It's like, well, buddy,
I think the Giants got a lot more pressing issues than Boston Scott right now.
Well, yeah. They just got rid of somebody, didn't they?
They traded Leonard Williams to
Leonard
Seattle.
Williams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, to your point,
and we traded Kentavious Street. and a 7th-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons for a draft pick, which makes sense. Grady Jarrett got hurt, toward the ACL and everything. Contavious Street's gone and everything. But you and I were talking off air, Jake, that could mean that Jalen Carter is in better shape than we probably hope he was. That was your point you made. I thought was good.
Yeah, and potentially more Moro Ojomo, or not more Moro Ojomo, but Moro Ojomo. Period.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tongue twister.
That was a lot. I didn't anticipate
more Moro Ojomo. Yeah,
more mojo. There we go. But let's kind of get back to the Eagles stuff. We did rag on the defense for some areas that they're lacking, spots that they weren't lacking. Let's see, Hassan Reddick. Good Lord, man, that guy's a closer, dude. That guy. If you're looking for a sack at the end of a game, Hassan Reddick is the guy to do it. Like that to be able to close out the game, essentially, because I do want to talk about how close this game actually was. But to be able to sack Sam Howell on a 4th down for a turnover on downs leading directly to a touchdown, I love that for him. And has he done it more than 3 times? Because I know he did it against Sam Howell twice in the first time that we played him. He got 2 sacks against Matt Stafford in LA, and then he just did it today. Has he done it more than just those 3 games?
I think since he shed that cast and everything, and I'm partial now because like I've talked to Hassan a couple times now. Like I am never going to come on this show and say anything bad about him now. So I'm totally partial, but he's brilliant, man. Like he's so good. I forget how good he was in each individual game. I actually have to go look at the numbers. Like 2 sacks and a forced fumble here, a forced fumble and a sack there. Like you said, closing out on 4th down there. It's just like you said, I had no worries about him when he struggled early because I knew it was probably the cast. The cast has come off. He's been excellent. I think it's 11 sacks without looking. I think it's 11 sacks since that cast came off.
Well, yeah. What week did the cast come off?
Cast came off. In between week 3 and week 4, because his first game without a hand, or with both hands, was that first game, and he was sorry, I just burped. Going up against Andrew Wiley.
So at least according to PFF, 1 sack against Washington in week 4, 2 against the Rams in week 2, 3 against the Jets in week 6, 0 against Miami, and then another 1 against Washington this week.
So I was just all the way off with 11. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I want to bring up. I saw somebody tweet this out today. Better numbers than last year, Hassan Reddick. But through week 8 in 2022, Hassan Reddick was at 5.5 sacks, 8 QB hits, and 5 TFLs.
He's a
2023
beast,
through 8 games, 6.5 sacks, 10 QB hits, and 7 TFLs.
He could be quiet for 59 minutes. I believe he's going to come through in that 60th.
That's what I'm saying, man. The guy is clutch gene. He is made of clutch genes. So that's really good. Did you guys have any other kudos to give out to anybody on defense?
I think with Reddick, it's so important to have that type of guy where it's just that rusher that can just close things out.
Oh my God.
And it's weird because you don't assume that in a sport like football, where it's like in baseball, you have that designated role, closer, where you're saving the game for those last 3 outs. But once it gets to that 2 minute 30 range, you have a guy like Reddick just pinning his ears back and screaming off the edge.
Yep.
That's important for any defense to have. And the fact that he's doing it at such a high level is just an invaluable part for the Eagles defense.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know Josh Sweat had another very productive game as well. Like he's, I think, top 8 in pressures maybe, or something like that. Josh Sweat's also otherworldly, but it's a very good situation to have. As far as I had this thought earlier this week, and I'll try to make it quick. Nolan Smith is absolutely benefiting from Jalen Carter being as good as Jalen Carter's being. If Nolan Smith was the only 1st-round pick and he did that numbskull thing where he runs into Britton Covey ripping off a monster punt return, and then Nolan Smith smacks straight into him and stops the run. Like, oh my God. Like if that was the case and Nolan Smith was our only 1st-round pick, Nolan Smith people would be letting him hear it. He's benefiting greatly from Jalen Carter being as good as he is. Let's see. on offense. Offense was a tremendous day. Jalen Hurts, I believe this is maybe not, he didn't have like the best statistics in his entire career, like in a bunch of different metrics like that. But man, if this might be his best passing performance I've ever seen in a regular season game. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a totally different thing, but he did a lot of that on his legs too. But this was a tremendous game. 4 touchdowns and let's see, 300 and something yards.
That might have been like the best individual performance of his career in the Super Bowl based on the way it was. But best passing performance, this is one of them. I think he hasn't thrown 4 touchdowns a lot. And based on, this being a road game, the bone bruise, the injury, all these other things and stuff like that, I agree with you. This was fantastic. Completed 76% of his passes.
319
I think the rate was 100, somewhere around 137.4, something like that. But 4 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions and everything. Take away the drop. Maybe his hands are just too small. I don't know what it is, but take away the drop. This was a near perfect performance. And they don't win without him, man. They don't win this without him.
Getting into the wide receivers, Nick saying the Julio touchdown was better to me than the AJ one. I don't know. Did you see what he did? Did you see what he did?
AJ was ridiculous. Just phenomenal. Just body control, skill, one-handed catch, getting both feet down and everything. I'm going to put them both. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Nick. I'm going to put them both in I'm going to make them even. I'm just going to cheat. Like
the
Julio ball slightly behind him, takes a violent shot in the end zone, things of that nature, put the Eagles up on the scoreboard for good. Like, great plays for 2 different reasons.
The
Julio though, like he got murdered on that. And the ball was slightly thrown behind him. That might have been, outside of the overthrow to DeAndre Swift, that might have been Jalen's worst throw of the game. And there wasn't many. He only had like 9 incompletions.
Right.
But the throw was behind Julio. Julio had to make an adjustment like AJ did, and then he took the shot. So they both were great for 2 different reasons.
The Julio touchdown, I would agree with Nick that play was better. That play was better. The AJ catch.
Yeah, I gotta go with the AJ catch. That was
special.
AJ's so special. He makes like plays look routine. I actually think the second touchdown catch was better. Double coverage.
Yeah, and then
thinking about the late hands he talks about and everything, it wasn't as optically pleasing, but yeah. I think it's actually a better catch.
Wasn't as flashy.
Yeah,
but the Julio one, I keep forgetting that he's 80, that he's number 80. Like I was like, who's this?
Yes.
I don't know who that guy is.
I want to take number 10 from the punter because I keep thinking Deshaun Jackson's numbers on a punter now. Julio's been 11 for a lot of his career and everything. Maybe we can take the number from the punter and give him the 10 number because these single digits and these lower digits on the wide receivers just look cooler to me now. It's like it's hard for me to look at a wide receiver that's got like 80 or above on his jersey and make me feel like he's cool.
I was going to say 80 is pretty old school, and yeah. I think as far as receivers on this team, yeah, Julio Jones is the most old school one. That's Isaac Bruce.
I heard this argument. What do you guys think? So Quez is definitely out now. Olamide or Julio in the slide.
Two different things. Two different jobs. When we got Julio, I said I'm going to be surprised if Julio gets. I would be happy if Julio got 15 catches this entire season. I think Olamide. I mean, the guy puts so much effort into everything. Like I think that it's just. I don't think Julio's going to be a run blocker like Olamide and Zach Pascal are. I think they're 2 very different packages whenever they have those guys out on the field.
He's a good work guy. That's you. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd say use both in the sense of just use like Julio in the red zone or like short yard situations where you need a catch in traffic because he'll take care of that. And I feel like you can use Zacchaeus everywhere else around the field, and maybe you switch it up. Maybe throw Olamide in there at times in the red zone to not have the defense key in on that. But look, it's a number 3 wide receiver. And if you can mix and match that stuff to enable the Eagles to have the best offense possible, then I think that's all that matters.
I was going to say, yeah, this is a hell of a conversation for us to have between Julio Jones and Quez Watkins when Indianapolis is like Michael Pittman or Josh Downs. So we're certainly in a good spot here.
One more, like Nakobe Dean and Nick Morrow.
I don't know.
Morrow was playing really well.
They're just asked
Morrow
to do
is
so little.
actually playing better than Nakobe Dean as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But it's Nakobe Dean's job just because of who he is and where he was drafted. We're stuck with him.
At
It's
least
like Keely Ringo. We're not getting rid of Keely Ringo. He's a fourth rounder. He's not going anywhere. Nakobe Dean's not going anywhere. He's going to get the green dot. They're going to put him out there.
it's just so bizarre for us to go from last year when we're like, oh, Nakobe Dean's going to be a great player, and then he gets 10 snaps the entire season because the linebackers are playing so well, and then this year you're getting an equal mix of Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow, and Nakobe Dean. It's like, man, it is just, I'm glad that we're seeing all of them and that we can actually finally assess what the hell we're going to do at linebacker in the future. Oh, buddy, I guess I think I might have to say Nick Morrow. I think I hate it. Like I don't feel good saying it, but
The resume as a whole says Nick Morrow. And I know Nakobe was hurt for a while, but when he missed 4 weeks,
something like that. Yeah,
I think he left the game early, missed 4 weeks and everything. Yeah, injury reserve. But Nick Morrow's playing better than I gave him credit for playing. He's better than I thought it was. All my apology.
Yeah. For a guy that couldn't stick around on the Bears roster, he's been delightful.
Yeah.
Because Nakobe Dean came back in week 5 because week 4 Nick Morrow got 3 sacks on Sam Howell.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, look at me remembering things. Let's see. Is there anybody else on offense that we need to talk about? I enjoyed I enjoyed Tyler Steen not being bad. Tyler Steen came in for 6 snaps when Sua Opeta went out, and I was really anticipating it being a kind of Jack Driscoll against the Jets, where it's like, God damn it, they're going to really expose this guy, and Tyler Steen held up. So that's good.
Yeah, he played well.
What's that?
He played well in limited action. He played very well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he played well, but I just don't know if he did. But like, he didn't play poorly. I didn't go, God, I cannot wait for Cam Jurgens to come back. Which Cam Jurgens is available to come back this week, so that's good.
More offense. Dolo says Julio and Swift going to be X factors in our playoff run.
Oh, let's talk running backs real quick. Kenny Gainwell. What are you doing, friend?
Oh boy.
What are you doing, Ken?
I know I'm the lone wolf on this one. I don't think Kenneth Gainwell's as bad as everybody says he is.
I don't know what you're looking at. We're watching the same game, right?
He's not DeAndre Swift. We realize that and everything, and this is when you need Jalil on this program. But the fumble, fumble too. Like, we're not talking about that. Like, Kenneth Gainwell got a little bit of body control. He's a 5th round guy. For a 5th round guy, like, I think we had this argument about somebody else, but if we're talking about like a 3rd running back on this team, or maybe he's the 2nd, I guess.
Did you see this?
I did. I saw this. I did see this.
Did you see that, Jeff?
On the phone, like that, yeah.
He was responding to people on Instagram, or not people, like one specific guy. He responded to a guy on Instagram during halftime.
Yeah, I didn't see that. No.
Ken,
that's a bad look.
It's a terrible look. It's awful. The guy said, I can't believe
that's like guys from the locker room watching Rihanna at halftime in the Super Bowl.
What on earth are you doing?
That's a story we don't talk about a whole lot, but yeah.
Oh my God.
I ain't gonna name any names either.
That fumble was incredibly frustrating. Yeah, the fumble on the brotherly shove. I understand something like that is going to happen. I don't think that's an indictment on that play at all. I think that Kenny Gainwell fumbling in the red zone within the 5, that's an indictment on the player 100%. That's an indictment on the player 100%. Like, it wasn't like a violent punch out or anything like that. Yeah, the guy made a play on the ball, but Kenny, my dude, you got 2 jobs, and holding the ball is one of them, fella. Ugh. He did kind of redeem himself at the end by getting out of bounds a whole bunch of times, but that should really only be his use.
I'm very interested to see if they actually start implementing Rashad Penny, because it seems like the way they want to use Gainwell.
Boston Scott.
Whether it's Scott or Penny, it seems like they fit that job better than what Gainwell has brought to the table. And in the limited action that they've seen so far, they've been better than what Gainwell has brought to the table. it's not even a question who the number one running back
Correct.
is for the Eagles. And if you look at the rushing attempts,
Yeah.
you know, it in terms of just running backs and taking out Jalen Hurts, it's 16-2. Like the touches are not close.
Yeah.
And this goes to the point of what we said earlier on previous shows. Swift hasn't been able to stay healthy. And yet they're giving him a workload of a guy that's been healthy and is going to be healthy. You have to implement Penny and Scott into this offense sooner rather than later, just to one, take the load off of Swift, and to two, just get better production than what you're getting out of Gainwell.
I'm wondering if they're saving Penny for the playoffs. Like they just can't. They have to know he's better than Kenneth Gainwell. They have to know that he's better than Boston Scott.
That wouldn't surprise me because I feel like I've seen them do that before.
But Gainwell is like, I don't know if this is misusage or something like that. Like he's not great. He's definitely not better than DeAndre Swift. He may not be better than Boston Scott. He's just not as bad as everybody else says he is either. 2 fumbles on, what's he got, like 50 carries this year? 2 fumbles on 50 carries can't happen, stuff like that. 3 yards a carry is bad. I don't think he's a red zone guy. Like, get him out of the red zone, definitely. Put somebody else there in the red zone. But they're just convinced this is their red zone tailback, and they're convinced this is their 2-minute tailback. And that's what he was all through camp.
I just think he's better as just a third down specialist.
Yeah, I agree that he should be like a Swift Army knife. He should be like a second option, but he's not the goal line guy. He should stop being the goal line guy. He's not the red zone guy. He's not the 2-minute guy, but the Eagles are convinced he is, and I think that's why he looks bad, because 3 yards a carry is awful too. But look at his first 2 years, he averages 4.5 yards a carry.
The only redeeming thing that I can find for Kenny right now is I don't know how Rashad Penny is in this, but Kenny Gainwell is the best of the running backs that we've seen play, best at pass protection by kind of a good amount. Like Kenny Gainwell will get in there and get physical. You know, the running the ball part of being a running back, that's also important, but he can block.
Which will explain why he's the red zone guy and the 2-minute guy and things of that nature and stuff. But then we just start doing dumb stuff in the red zone. Like, rather than just give the ball to a running back in the red zone, we want to run that quarterback draw to Jalen Hurts twice.
I don't know if we saw any quarterback draws this week. I didn't pay attention.
And thankfully, because if we were going to see that with an injured Jalen Hurts, I was going to be furious. But
Exactly, because he looked bad. One last thing before we go. Okay, I kind of alluded to this before. Was this game closer than the score was? Okay, so here's my take on this. I could argue that the Commanders moved the ball on their last possession to get to that 31, to go from 24 to 31 points. Okay, they moved the ball down the field pretty good right there, and that garbage time, because immediately after that they did the onside kick, and Devontae Smith, otherworldly hands team play. Like, that ball is getting behind so many people, but he's able to shoot his arms up and grab the ball on the onside kick. That was tremendous. And because of how close that onside kick was to being successful for the Commanders, I think that this might actually have been a 1-score game and not a 2-score game with points in garbage time. Am I dumb? Am I overthinking? I'm overthinking it. I'm absolutely overthinking it. But am I dumb? Somebody tell me I'm not dumb.
You're not.
Okay, thank God.
I think I'm going to say garbage time touchdown. It just looks great because it was a great throw and an even better catch by the Duke guy. What's his name? Guy played the Duke.
Who the hell was that?
I can remember everything about his name. He went to Monroe High School. He's from North Carolina. He went to Duke.
Jamison Crowder.
Yep. Yeah. But great catch by him on that touchdown. But, that was that thing. The Eagles knew they were playing with a lead. They had some cushion. They were just content to give up things underneath. And then they decided they were going to go deep, and they weren't ready for that. They caught them sleeping. But
yeah, I couldn't tell because that garbage time touchdown almost was I can't tell if that was a garbage time touchdown or a we made this game close touchdown. And that's where my brain is. And
that happens a lot versus Commanders, though. They always seem to get that last score with at the end of the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, last time it sent us to overtime, but they always seem to close that gap and make the score a little bit tighter than it was supposed to be.
Unless it's Carson Wentz. In that case, just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Praying for Grant Calcaterra, the concussion, as we discussed earlier, history of concussions at Oklahoma, caused him to retire, came back, went to SMU, played well, got drafted by the Eagles and stuff, has another concussion. I'd like Grant Calcaterra as a dude, but it's just like, at this point, you got to think about your health, and I'm wondering if this is just a game he needs to be playing.
Yeah, that's a hell of a question. That's going to be a big old nut up moment for him whenever he has to make that decision, because that is not great. Not great at all.
Yep. You
got anything, Brandon?
Nope. All set.
How did Tommy DeVito look? Actually, I don't care.
Horrible.
That's weird. That's crazy.
So we're talking trash about Cowboy fans on Friday.
Friday, mark it in your calendars. Okay. Mark it in your calendars as Dallas hate week continues.
I hate Dallas and their fans.
I was going to ask you before I was going to text you. I figured this is a good time to do it. We're not getting a Dallas person on for this week, are we? I'm sure that's not a conversation that you want to have.
I can ask. I mean, Jerry's around, stuff like that. I think I asked Jerry last year.
You got a main line to Jerry Jones?
Jerry Trotter. Jerry Trotter's, he runs the Landry.
Oh, okay.
I know a lot of Dallas guys, unfortunately. Well, I'm cool with them. I just hate their fans.
people that are that's good. That's fun. All right. Thank you guys very much for joining us again. The Philadelphia Eagles are 7-1, top of the division, top of the conference, top of the league. They sit at the top of the throne. It's Dallas week. It's Dallas week now. We're moving on to that. Let's sweep another divisional team. Divisional team. That'd be good. That'd be great. Thank you guys very much for joining us. We'll be back with you guys on Friday. Go Birds.